Live, not from New York. It's the Get Clear Show. And now, here's Laura.
Hello and welcome to the Get Clear Show. I'm Laura Wing and I'm your host. We have a fantastic show for you today. I'm so excited. Kelly Crosby is with me and she is a wonderful artist. She's our featured artist of the week today. Before we get started, I want to send a big shout out and thank you to my sponsor, Richard Santiago II, rsantiagoart.com. Thank you so much, Richard, for sponsoring today's show. And also another shout out to Hua Photography for doing the photographs for today's show and for some of my graphic design. Some wonderful work by both of those people, and you can check out their information at their websites. We'll have that posted at the bottom of today's episode. Right now, I want to give a big welcome to a wonderful woman that I met a few weeks ago online, and I started looking at some of her artwork, wonderful artwork. She has a very unique style, and I'm going to let her talk all about her style. Kelly, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited that you're here. I was looking at your website, and we were hoping to get to share your website with the audience today, but unfortunately we're having technical difficulties, and so I don't know if we're going to be able to do that, but we're certainly going to try. And you have such an amazing, beautiful style. I want to give you an opportunity to talk about your artwork. But before we do that, tell me a little bit about how you got started in the art world. Have you been doing art for a long time?
Yeah, I've been doing art. Let's see, I've been painting since high school. So I've been at this for a long time. It's always been a love of mine, and I always love being creative and doing creative things. So being an artist, it's been a lifelong passion, but I would say that I seriously considered it. I seriously started to consider pursuing the arts when I was in high school, and I met a wonderful art teacher and also a professional artist named Richard Thomas. And he took me and my other classmates on as apprentices at his studio. And he taught us not only the techniques of art, but he also taught us the business of art and how to become profitable with our work. And so after high school, I pursued arts administration for I pursued fine arts as my bachelor's degree, and I got that in 2000, degree in arts administration in 2007. So, like I said before, I've been in the creative industry for a very long time, and I have no plans to leave anytime soon.
Well, I've looked at some of your work, and it is very unique and very interesting to me. And I want you to share with our audience a little bit about your style, because you and I had spoken on the phone before we decided to do this interview together. And I had told you at the time that I didn't know that there was a whole art world attached to a specific culture. And so I'm going to give you an opportunity to share what that's all about.
Okay, I guess you could say that my style it's very multicultural. It's heavily different. As my religious background as a Muslim, because of my being a Muslim and meeting Muslims from around the world, it's opened up these different cultures to me, people from different nations, taking my artwork ways of breaking some of the negative stereotypes that are out there about Muslims and looking at all the beautiful artistic and creative traditions that come out of these various cultures. So my art is heavily influenced by designs that you'll see in the Middle East, but also in West Africa and Southeast Asia.
So tell us a little bit about what inspires you then to create these beautiful pieces, because I have to tell you, having not been exposed a lot to the Muslim culture because of where I live, when I saw these pieces, I was blown away. And you talked a little bit about sort of breaking the barriers down regarding those stereotypes. And I had no idea that there was so much beauty in that particular culture until I started looking at the things that you have created. And they were breathtaking, absolutely breathtaking to me. But what inspires you to create these types of pieces? And they're so diverse. I look at some of these and there are glass pieces, and you have paintings, and you just have so many different pieces. What is it that, where do you get your ideas from, I guess?
My ideas. Well, thank you so much for your kind words. I get my inspiration from so many different things, but if I had to pinpoint one thing that really inspires me, I would have to say that it's color. I'm heavily obsessed with color and the way how color can evoke certain emotions, certain psychological states. And I love the reaction that people have to my work because of its colorfulness. I just came back from an art show that I did in Chicago 2 weekends ago, and there was one. It's very happy. It's very happy, very colorful, and so I'm glad that I'm able to kind of invoke those positive feelings of warmth, happiness, and whimsical, that sort of whimsy in my art. So I would say color is a primary influence. The second one would just be my study of, I don't say that I look at it from a anthropological point of view, but I am sort of a culture buff. I love to study different cultures because, I think that in this world where technology is bringing us together and it's making the world smaller and smaller, have the luxury of being ignorant about anything that's going on in the world anymore. And so I like to look at, for example, I love to look at the different traditions of marriage in different cultures. I like to look at the way how people worship in different cultures. So even amongst one religion, for example, Islam, there are different ways that people express their faith. There's different kind of practices that you'll find in different parts of the world. And so color and diversity is what really informs my work, and always having an emphasis on beauty. Because when you turn on the television at night, I mean, it doesn't look great out there. There's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of chaos. And I would hope that my art could be a remedy to that, because I feel like there's enough ugly in the world, and I don't want to add to that.
Well, I'm going to agree with you on that when you said that you think your art can be a remedy to that. I think that amongst all different cultures, there are a lot of barriers and there are a lot of misunderstandings. And I look at your pieces and I see that you have definitely broken through those barriers, and you have created beauty in a world that, according to some other people, may not be so beautiful, or they don't understand maybe that there's beauty in that world because of what we see on the news, because of what we are told in our particular society here. But I saw your pieces and I thought, wow, this is so intriguing. And they were things that they made me curious, and they made me want to learn and study a little bit more about particular cultures. And I find it interesting also that you were talking about how the internet has made this world of ours so much smaller, and how we, and it's so true. We're all coming together, I think, a little bit more, and we're having conversations that without the internet, I don't think we would have had before. I love interviewing artists. I do this every Tuesday. I get to interview new artists, and I'm always intrigued at how each one of the artists that I speak to have definitely been influenced by where they have lived, where they have traveled, the foods that they've eaten, the ways that they have grown up, and it comes through in their artwork. So, I don't know where you live, or, well, I know you live in Georgia. I know that, but I don't know if you've lived in other places, and if other places around the world have influenced what you're doing, or if you've actually been a part of culture outside of the United States that has influenced, your visual process.
Yeah. I'm originally from New Orleans, so there's a lot of inspiration right there.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, even though I haven't lived in the city since 2005, I still consider myself a proud New Orleanian, and our history and culture is just so unique from other parts of the world. You have this beautiful mix of African, French, Spanish, Native American culture all thrown together, and it creates, it is like a gumbo, literally. And you have all this beautiful architecture as inspiration. And of course, it's, the home place of jazz musicians, gospel, rhythm and blues, blues music, so coming from New Orleans and from the artistic, musical influences there, that definitely influences my work. But I've also had the privilege of traveling to different countries. So I've been to France and Spain for about 2.5 years in Dubai.
Kelly, we're losing you. I'm sorry. I think the last thing we heard is that you had lived in Dubai. Okay. Is that correct?
Yes. I lived in Dubai. Yeah, sorry about the technical issues. I also traveled to Jordan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. I think that's all.
I think we've lost your audio again. So I know I've been through Jordan, albeit through the airport. My husband and I lived in Israel for a little while, and on our way there, we went through Jordan in order to get to Israel. And Israel is quite the melting pot of culture as well. And we saw things that you don't necessarily see in the United States, just like you would if you travel anywhere, whether you go to South America or you go to Europe, you're going to see things that you don't see here in the United States. And it can be very inspiring. And one of the things that I think it has taught me is that people are people, regardless of where you go. Everybody has the same struggles in life, regardless of where they live or what their cultural background is. People are just people. But I remember going to the art museums when we were in Tel Aviv, and I was just floored at the things that are considered art. Maybe in one culture we might look at and say, well, I don't get it. I remember going through a display. They had a display on the Third Day War that took place there in the 70s. And I felt so very disconnected from all of that, from the photography, from the paintings that were done, because I wasn't there. It was not part of my culture. So when I look at your pieces, however, what I see is that you have, through your artwork, connected cultures. And I didn't feel disconnected when I saw your stuff. Instead, what I felt was a sense of beauty and wonder and curiosity. And I love the colors that you use in all of your artwork. So explain to me why it is you use such vibrant colors.
You know what? I was thinking about that today. I honestly think that for me, as an artist, it's intuitive. It is something that comes from within, and it is one of those sort of I guess like spiritual or psychological things that you may not be able to pin down. Because today I was thinking, okay, maybe my artwork is a little bit too happy. Maybe I need to start exploring some darker themes of maybe war and oppression and other things that I'm concerned about. But sometimes when I try to matters, for some reason, I'm still injecting hope in there, whether if it's through the color scheme, whether it's through the patterns, position of, like, for example, I did a painting about the war in Iraq, and I was showing groups of Muslim women that were in kind of different states of awe and suffering. And yet there were people looking at this painting and thought, oh, wow, this looks really great. This looks really beautiful. And I'm thinking, this is war. What are you talking about? It's not so.
I feel like I probably saw something to the effect when I was going through your website. Real quick here, can you just share with us very quickly what your website is so that people can go to that, maybe even while they're watching this live broadcast? How can they find you online?
My website? Yes, my website is KeelyCrosbyDesign.com. That's KeelyCrosby.DESI.
I'm going to go ahead and repeat that, Kelly, because you were breaking up a little bit. It's KeelyCrosbyDesign.com. So that's KELLYCROSBY design.com. And I would really, really encourage you to go take a look at her website and take a look at some of the things that she has painted. And, you will not be disappointed, I promise you. And you do some things with glass art, is that right?
Yes, actually, it's just a few years ago that I started working with glass. And to be honest, that just kind of came along by accident because I was in a craft store and I was looking for something new to do other than paintings. I was just a little bit bored of doing paintings. And so I felt like painting on glass. And so I experimented with some glass paint and some fabric paint, which, some of your viewers might know, very textural and a very slick surface, whether if you apply it to fabric or glass. And so I also incorporate that into my glass art. So that kind of came along out of just looking for another creative outlet. But that's another way that I, like to have fun and also add color to, home decor. So I guess you could say that's more of the home decor aspect of my website.
Yeah. And there's some beautiful home decor stuff on your website. I'm just stunning stuff. I was also intrigued with your henna hands. Tell us a little bit about the henna hands.
Oh, the henna hands. Well, once again, that's going back to my love of different cultures and the practice of henna. And you can find henna. And for those who don't know, henna is the traditional temporary floral tattoos that women have placed on their hands, arms, and feet for, when they get married. So it's a way of beautifying her and celebrating her, her upcoming marriage. And, if you go to places like India, Morocco, and even parts of West Africa like Senegal or Mali, even though each culture has different patterns, different textures, different colors, they all sort of follow the same format. And so that's what inspired me to do these paintings, because I love the intricate forms of henna, these very feminine, beautiful floral designs that are, placed on the hands. And then, of course, putting them not just on flesh tones, but putting them on bright, almost electric colors like bright blues.
I have a question about the henna. How long does it take you to do a hand, for example, a henna hand? How long does that take? Because it is so intricate.
Let's see. If I wasn't taking a break, I think it might take a day. How big? Usually kind of time myself. I just usually work on it about a few hands at a time. Then I stop and do something else, and then I come back and work on it some more. Yeah, but you can just imagine for, the women, all across the world that are doing this henna, and, they can't really stop, they have to do it.
They have to keep going. Yeah.
Right. And they might have assistants, and depending on, how intricate it is, it could take hours. And then, of course, they have to apply different
breaking up a little bit again, Kelly.
Sorry. Yeah, they use different kind of
what it reminds me of a little bit is, the new adult coloring books that are out that have all the little intricate designs. Yes. And that's very much what it reminds me of. I could sit for hours I have pencils and a coloring book. I can't draw. I'm not an artist. I don't ever claim to be an artist. I can't draw a stick figure straight, but I can color in the lines. And so I appreciate adult coloring books. But that's really what those intricate designs of the henna hands, when I was looking at them, that's what it reminded me of.
Thank you. I mean, it's amazing. I feel like I missed out on a really huge idea, but who would have thought that adult coloring books would be so big?
I know.
They're
everywhere.
Isn't
that something? That is. It's just remarkable. You should make a coloring book. I think you should just make a coloring book with nothing but hands. People can color in the hands. It would be pretty fascinating. Well, on that note, let's talk a little bit about how you go about marketing yourself. Several weeks ago, I did a show with a gentleman by the name of Dan Flores, whom I know you know. And
Yes.
Dan is quite the artist, and he's very, very involved in the art community. And we did an episode talking about marketing for artists and why there should never be a starving artist out there. There are so many opportunities for artists to market themselves in this digital world that we live in, you know, whether that's having a website, making sure that you do videos and things like that. So how do you go about marketing yourself?
Yeah, I've actually gone to I think one or two sessions from Dan Flores. So yeah, he's awesome, and I love how he's integrated the business and the creative aspect of being an artist. But some of the ways that I market myself, and I do point out that I'm still kind of a newbie at digital marketing, but I love to promote myself on Instagram, on Twitter, and Facebook. I also have my mailing list. And I'm thinking about branching out into different companies that carry home decor products and hoping to get some advertising with them. But yeah, as an artist, it's still, for me, because I'm still learning it, it's still a challenge trying to find the right venues to do my marketing. But for right now, I'm sticking to kind of the tried and true methods that most artists are using right now with social media, because I've gotten so many followers and fans just through social media and opportunities through social media. So I think social media is, you know, a gold mine for artists.
I think it's a gold mine for any business. It doesn't matter what you do, whether that, but especially when you have something so visual, you know, for photographers, for musicians, anything that people want to be able to see and hear. And I think it might be a little bit more tricky to use social media as effectively, not that it shouldn't be done, and in fact it should absolutely be done, if you're doing something like, say, heating and air. You know, maybe you'll put a post out there every day, but really, unless somebody's heater goes out or their air conditioning crashes, they're probably not on social media looking at something. You know, wow, that was a pretty cool installation you did last week. But people want to see art. They want to hear music. They want to have those experiences. And social media, along with just the internet in general, has opened up that opportunity, I think, for everybody. Even I don't live where you live. I can't walk into a store that you may have set up somewhere and see what you have, but I can get on your website and I can take in everything that you've created. And then I also have that opportunity to purchase those items so that I can appreciate them for an indefinite amount of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think
another,
I do think the internet has just really revolutionized how artists are able to promote themselves, so that we don't have to live in this world that says, oh, you're an artist, you must be a starving artist. You know, I don't think that artists have been very well respected in the past, but we're seeing now that art is definitely taking on a form of business. I mean, people are making full and very lucrative careers out of their art.
Yeah, and thankfully we've been kind of freed from the gallery and the museum as being the only middleman between the artist and the client, because that relationship in itself can be very tenuous depending on what kind of gallery agreement you're, you know, able to get. So, you know, for an artist in the 21st century, you do have to have that entrepreneurial mindset in order to become. For some of us, you know, and even for myself, it is an adjustment. School, I did have a small little greeting card business. So I did know a little bit about turning my art into product and being able to sell it. But aspects of business like finance and networking and, you know, things that are outside of my comfort zone that I have to know about in order to be successful. So it's definitely been a learning experience, but I think with, you know, each year it just gets better, and the technology is constantly changing. You know, I mean, I didn't even realize that Instagram and Facebook are now connected, and so you have to negotiate those issues there. So yeah, I think we're looking at a positive time for artists. You know, it's a different time with the advent of all the internet tools.
I would think that with your skills, because they are such incredible skills and your work is just so stunning, that you probably have young artists who are trying to learn new things, who are watching you and seeing how successful you are becoming with your genre of art, that are coming to you and asking for advice. Do you have the opportunity to mentor any of these young artists?
Not mentor on a long-term basis, but when I do have art shows, or some of my friends who have arts, every now and then they'll ask me a question and say, oh, you know what, I think my daughter is, really inclined towards, or anything, because that sometimes my friends like.
I think we're losing you on and off. We're losing you on and off, Kelly. You seem to be coming in and out, but that's okay. I think I got the gist of it. And what you're saying is people, might ask you for a few tips or a little bit of advice, but you're not necessarily teacher student. You're not walking people through through a full teaching process. Am I right?
Right. Not yet. I mean, I hope to in the future, but I mean, it's kind of weird because
I'm gonna stop you because we lost you again, Kelly. I'm gonna stop you right there. So for some reason your sound is just coming in and out, but I'm going to make a comment here on that. I think that in this day and age, as we were talking about with the use of the internet, what a wonderful opportunity, if somebody is so inclined to do so, to create a course online and maybe put that course on YouTube. People go to YouTube to search all sorts of things, or to create a course that people could join, they can come to and learn how to do certain techniques. For example, maybe learn how to do henna or learn how to paint on glass, something that they hadn't otherwise had the opportunity to learn. Even if they're hundreds of miles away from you and they can't come to an actual live class, they might be able to take that class online. And I think that is another way that artists can go ahead and market themselves. Of course, I'm real big on education of any kind, period. And so I think that's a great way that artists could go about marketing themselves. Is that something that you've considered doing?
That's a pretty good idea. I'm gonna have to try that. Yeah, I know there's some online platforms like Skillshare and Udemy. So yeah, actually that's pretty feasible. I might have to try that.
Yes, there are some wonderful platforms out there to use. I know that for myself, I'm in the middle of creating a course on Thinkific, and I'm going to give a plug for them real quick. Thinkific, Thinkific, and it's a free platform. So unless you want to upgrade, which isn't necessary for everybody, unless you want to upgrade, it's completely free to create a course on there. It's pretty robust. So if you wanted to take your students through, like I said, how to paint henna or how to paint on glass, you could certainly do that. And it's another income producing opportunity for artists. I think that certainly doing live courses with people in your specific area that you live and having them come together is probably more ideal, because it's a hands-on process. But you're not limited. I don't think anybody who wants to promote themselves is limited anymore. And people who say, well, I just don't, I don't know, I can't seem to get my product out there, are probably not using the tools that in our society we have so readily available at our disposal.
Yeah, it's that. And from other artists that I've talked to, it's also an issue of confidence, which is something that I've struggled with. And I think a lot of artists struggle with, this idea of, am I good enough? Is it time for me to put my product out there? Is my product ready for the public? So there's how can I put it? There's emotional barriers, there's financial barriers. And so you have to work through all of them.
Yes, absolutely. And there will be both of those barriers for anybody who's just starting out. And sometimes people feel as if they haven't produced enough yet. I've talked to some artists who said, well, I just don't, I only have 8 or 9 pieces, and until I have a better portfolio, I really don't want to get myself out there. They're not ready. And I think timing is key. I do think that some people can jump into things a little bit too fast and they're not prepared for what could come their way. But at the same time, like you said, there are people who will just drag their feet because they just don't have that confidence. They maybe, and time sometimes produces confidence. The more you do, the more you sell, the more confidence you gain. But it does take time. What do you tell new artists that are just starting out to help them build that confidence?
What I tell them is to try to connect with local arts organizations, because you get to meet with other artists. And believe it or not, whether those artists have been at it for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, everyone has hangups about their work. I mean, I think that's just part of being a creative person. And it's nice to get that feedback from people in your peer group. That's a very good way to kind of get over some anxieties that you might have, because you're talking to people that are in the same industry, so they know exactly how you feel. And I think another thing I would say is to just take that one chance, just apply for at least one art show, because you don't want to become so stuck that you think, well, you'll never be good enough if you think, oh, I just have to overcome this hurdle. I got to do this thing. I got to overcome this. I have to do that.
Do you tend to be your own worst critic? I hear a lot of artists say they are their own worst critic. Is that you?
Probably, yes.
Yeah. Are you a perfectionist? Do you consider yourself to be a perfectionist?
A perfectionist? I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. Yeah. And there are times where I just have to force myself to walk away and say, you know what, just stop. Painting is finished. Just have to finish,
Good enough is good enough. That's what I always say.
Exactly.
I remember when I was editing videos and I would spend hours and hours and hours trying to edit one element of a video that honestly nobody else was going to care about. And I had to learn that good enough is good enough, and let's just get this project finished. I do the same thing when I'm writing. I go over my writings, think, this stinks, and somebody else reads this and says, wow, that's really good. I think that creative people do tend to be their own worst critics, and sometimes that's because I have a thought in my head of how it's supposed to turn out, and maybe it doesn't turn out that way, or I'm afraid somebody's going to misunderstand my thought. But the worst thing I think a person can do is to not get it done and get it out there for other people to view. And nobody's going to produce something that 100% of the people are going to love. I think both you and I could look at the same piece of art, and one of us could say, wow, that is just amazing. And the other one of us go, because it's not our style. And that's really what it boils down to. So art is very subjective. Not everybody's going to like the same thing, but we can all appreciate the process. I can look at something, and even though it may not be my taste, I can still look at that and be impressed with the skill that went into that. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not.
Yeah, that is something that I've learned, especially from studying art history, because of course I had that period of, well, I know what I like and what I don't like, but now I can go into our gallery and look at a piece and say, okay, this is not my particular style, but I can see that this is well executed. And I think that is something that can be judged objectively, but only that part. I mean, beyond that, I think so much of it is just taste, just your own personal taste.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons why, I try to tell people, whether they're creating a painting or doing digital content, or their writings especially, don't worry about the people who say, oh, that's not very good, or tell you that they don't want to purchase your work, or no, sometimes people enter contests and they don't win. That's okay. That doesn't mean that your work was bad. It just means that it wasn't right for that particular person, but it doesn't mean that your work itself was bad. Now, having said that, you and I both know that there are some artists, there are some writers, there are some musicians who need better skills. They definitely need better skills. And that's okay. That can come with practice. That can come with time. But I don't think anybody should ever be afraid to get their stuff out there, because you never know who's going to appreciate that. And those things are confidence builders.
Yes, yeah, they are.
Do you still, I know that you have opportunities there where you live to attend, to get together with other artists, but do you still continue to educate yourself on art techniques?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, my next hurdle that I want to get over is digital art. I would
Yes.
really like to master Adobe Photo. So, I mean, I would love to start learning how to do not what am I trying to say? I'm really in love with the Japanese style of animation and cartoons, and so
Oh,
I would really love to.
anime? Mhm.
Yes, I would really love to do some anime. I Over the past year or so, I've just kind of fallen in love with a lot of the different cartoons that are out there. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I'm too old for this. But I mean, I really do appreciate the style and the artistry in their cartoons. I mean, I really can't explain it, but even the storylines are very sophisticated.
Very
So I would,
sophisticated, and there are a lot of
you know,
shapes that are involved in that may not um, that are not incorporated in other types of cartoons. It's more of a shape thing, I think. You're going to see some sharper edges,
yeah,
and yeah.
exactly. It's very sharp, very angular, and I really love how especially some of the more historical cartoons. But I like how they've integrated history into the cartoons. And so I'm thinking, my goodness, I'm actually learning something. You know,
Yeah,
when
yeah, there's
they
some
have
history
these
involved in there.
right, when they have these great stories about the old samurai warriors and the ancient emperors, it's like, wow, this is really interesting. And
So you're in the
I respect
process
the
now.
process.
Yes. So you are in the process right now of learning Adobe Photoshop. Am I correct with that?
Yes.
And have you created anything with Adobe yet, or are you still just practicing with that?
I'm still just practicing. And because I'm so used to doing everything by hand, I mean, and I really have to break out of this habit, but I end up scanning my artwork and uploading it into Adobe Photoshop and kind of playing around with some of the features inside the software rather than actually drawing something or designing
Yes.
something inside of it. But yeah, that's as far as I've gotten so far. But I would really like to master it one day because I think it's a really cool piece of software.
Well, Adobe is so very robust, and there are so many things that you can do with it that I think just getting to know the software itself and figuring out what it can do is quite a
Mm,
feet. It's absolutely quite a feet. I was at the
yeah.
store the other day, and I was looking for a new computer, and I iPad is it? I don't know. It's an Apple product of some kind, but they have this thing that you can actually draw on now. It's got a
Yes.
little pen and you can draw as if it's a real canvas, and I was just blown away by that. But there was another thing, I don't know what it's called, but you plug it into your computer, and it doesn't have a screen like the iPad does, but you can draw on it, and you can see what you're drawing on your computer screen. And I thought that might be that might be something very handy for an artist who wants to learn how. And I think you can use it with Adobe. I don't know because I don't know much about the art world,
Yeah.
but it's very
Yeah, actually I
fascinating to
have
me.
one of those.
Oh yeah, is,
Yeah,
is
I
it easy
do.
to use?
It's for me, it's a little bit awkward. And when you mention that, I guess it was maybe an iPad Pro. I think
Pro,
that's what it
yeah.
might be.
Yes.
Yeah, with the stylus and the screen. I mean, it just looks so gorgeous, and the fact that you can draw right on the screen. And so, of course, now I want that. I want something
Yes.
where you
Yes.
can have um, uh, that nice drawing, and because for someone who's always working with her hands, that's perfect.
Yes. Yeah. It's just amazing what technology can do. And I just think we're going to see maybe here in the next 5 or 6 years, we're going to see a whole lot more digital art shows. I mean, really, just digital art
Mm,
shows. And by that, I mean people going online to check out an online gallery and see an actual online show that maybe is only going to be posted for a few hours or a weekend or something like that, rather than having to go to a physical gallery. And I know some of that's already going on, but I'm talking about
mhm.
specific to digital art, something somebody drew on that iPad Pro. Do you think that's going to
Yeah.
happen more and more?
Yeah, I definitely do. I mean, the internet, I mean, it's just amazing. I don't really know how much we realize or how we could even conceive how much it's changed the way how we do art, how we sell art, how we promote it, how we show it to the world. But I could definitely see some kind of online forum where there is digital artists and they're showing their work online, and who knows. I mean, the possibilities are really endless. And so that's why I really feel like I want to learn more about digital art, because I mean, it's growing by leaps and bounds, and you learn one kind of software and they've already come out with a new kind and a new
Absolutely.
version.
Yeah,
and
yeah, that's so true. And it doesn't matter
yeah,
what you're into, even if you're just well, gosh, if you just look at social media, I mean, there was a time when MySpace was a thing, and nobody knows about MySpace anymore. So things change very rapidly.
yes,
I know that if
yes.
you were to create an online event now, which people do all the time, you can always create an online event for people to go to. But I'm saying you specifically, Kelly, if you create an online event and you sell tickets to your show, I'm going to purchase a ticket to go look at your online gallery, because I can't be there in person, and you have some incredible pieces.
Oh, that's
so I encourage
awesome.
you to do that. I encourage you to do that.
Okay.
Sell tickets, okay? Sell tickets.
Okay, cool.
Well, if there is one thing that you could leave our audience with today, again, I want to mention your website one more time. It's Kelly Crosby Design, and we'll have that in the description at the end of today's episode. I'll make sure we put that down there. But if there's one thing that you can leave our audience with regarding your work and art, what would that be?
Regarding my work and art, well, I have to say that for this interview, I really feel like I am achieving my goal of making connections. And so I would leave your viewers with, for anyone who's out there that has an artistic inclination, use your art to make connections with other people, because sometimes, it's difficult communicating across cultures, across religions, across different political beliefs. But when we start to use creativity, that's when we start speaking in a language that everyone can understand.
Well, thank you for that, Kelly. Kelly, thank you so much for being on today's show. It's been a pleasure having you here. And I look forward to checking out some more of your work as you get it posted and you get it online. I want to remind our audience just one more time, you can always see Kelly's work at kellycrosbydesign.com. And it's just absolutely stunning, absolutely beautiful. And I highly encourage you to check it out. Kelly, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. You have a great night.
You too. I want to say goodbye to all of our viewers, but before you go, I want to give a special thanks to our Santiago Art for creating the designs that you've seen on today's show, and also a shout out to Hua Photography for providing the photographs for today's show. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.